Well, hello, parents and students. We just finished our 4-week series in the youth entitled Screens and Teens, talking about teens and technology. And students, if you missed some of these, this video is for you, especially parents. This is for you. Let you know what we talked about and maybe some things you might be able to implement in your homes. I thought I'd just, I shared a video already with some of the questions that I asked students and how informative their answers were about technology and what it has done for them in their lives, to them in their lives. And so I thought I would just wrap up this series with a quick overview as fast as I can. So one of the passages that actually two passages I've been sharing with the students every single week to kind of give a framework for this. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12 from the Amplified Bible. You say everything is permissible for me, and then Paul responds, but I say not all things are beneficial. You say everything is permissible for me, and here's what Paul says in response, but I will not be enslaved by anything. And I definitely see a generation being enslaved to glowing rectangles in their hands and in their pockets. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You can definitely see the patterns of this world with technology. And these are the types of things we're trying to avoid. So I shared technology doesn't just do things for us, it does things to us. And it has changed the way that we think, and it has especially changed the way that students have thought. There's an interesting quote in one of the books that maybe you and I as older parents, we call it technology because we were born before that was invented. For students, they don't call it technology, it's just normal. It's an everyday thing. So here's an interesting quote from Steven Spielberg. Technology can be our best friend, and technology can also be the biggest party pooper of our lives. It interrupts our stories, interrupts our ability to have a thought or a daydream, to imagine something wonderful because we're too busy bridging the walk from the cafeteria back to the office on a cell phone. That's pretty insightful. So, I'll give some reasons why. This book covers 5 lies that technology has just innately presented, or 5 lies that youth have bought into because of their oversaturation with technology. So here are some of the whys. Technology has trained students to think that it's all about me. It's about my preferences, it's about my playlist, my streaming services. I could choose whatever I want to watch. It's all tailored to them. We live in a culture of now. What you want, when you want it, and you can have it right now. And then you start to feel like that should be expected for everything. We live in a culture of now. Everything moves faster than it did before. And so that has created lots of impatience, not just for our youth, but also for us as adults. I feel like I'm far more impatient now than when I was younger. I'm used to things loading faster, things happening just a lot faster. We live in a culture of entertainment. We live in a culture of new. Every update and upgrade makes us happy. We live in a culture of entitlement. I deserve this because X, Y, and Z. Some of the other reasons for why would be teens are more intuitive with technology. That's just the way it is. If you can't figure it out, give it to your teen. They can figure it out maybe twice as fast. It's just they have been, with their exposure to technology, it's almost like they've been hardwired to get things faster than some of us. Teens long to be self-sufficient. That has always been true. Information is easier to find than it ever has been before. When I was sharing about this last night in youth, I asked them to define or tell me the difference between knowledge and wisdom. One of the students had their cell phones with him at that time. He just pulled it right out and asked Siri and wrote down the answer. Now, information is really accessible, but that's not the same as wisdom, and we'll talk about that. When our digital lives revolve around us, we start to think that our universe does, or wish that it would. And when we're used to these accommodations, sometimes real life is not going to measure up that way. Real life with school, friends, families, jobs, they're not as accommodating as some of these lies that we're going to be presenting. So here are the 5 things that this book went over. I thought it was really good. I told the students, don't react with, oh, that's not true. I wanted them to think, how might this be true? Maybe it's not so true for them. Maybe they're not as saturated in technology as some of the examples that were listed out in this book. But here are the 5 lies anyway. I am the center of my own universe. If you've bought into all this and you've had a steady dose of this since you were a toddler carrying around your parents' phone, you might start thinking you are the center of the universe. Some of the truths that I shared with these lies. Life is not about you, it's about God and it's about others. Lie number 2, I deserve to be happy all the time. If your happiness level goes down, then download something new, or every time your app refreshes, or every time there's a new update, your happiness peaks for a second. Well, happiness is momentary and based on external circumstances and factors, but joy is lasting and based on a relationship with Christ. Even though waiting might make you unhappy, it is part of life, and it is an important tool that God uses. And so we talked about that. I told them to focus on some of the virtues of the fruits of the Spirit, which we're going over on Sunday, like patience and self-control. Lie number 3, I must have choices. Spotify has over 30 million songs. And they upload 20,000 songs every single day. You will never exhaust all the song possibilities out there, the 1 billion websites that are out there to keep your attention, all the posts that are posting online, all the text and things like that. You will never exhaust that. One of the things we talked about technology is the interruption that it causes in our lives. And when we put our phones away for that youth service, I asked the students afterward to pick up their phones and tell me how many notifications, how many emails, how many texts, how many phone calls that you missed. And I was very surprised with, even in that span of an hour and a half, how most of them could have been interrupted 20, 30 times with different things, different notifications. Lie number 3, I must have choices. Starbucks is much like this. There's way too many choices out there. Well, too many options often leave us overwhelmed, and that is one of the responses we're getting from youth, is just this feeling of just being overwhelmed. Too many options does that for us, and real life usually only presents us with a couple options, and sometimes it's just 2. Will you be obedient or will you be disobedient? And asking for a 3rd or 4th option when it comes to your job and employment and things like that, school, those realities just aren't there. Focusing on virtues like contentment and gratitude in Philippians chapter 4 are things we talked about. Lie number 4, I am my own authority. If you've been able to control all this for your life, you might start thinking, I am in charge. And if students have grown up with absent parents or parents that try to be their best friends, they might start thinking that they themselves are their own authority. Colossians chapter 3 talks about how God works through authority. And God is the ultimate authority. He works through authority figures that He has placed in our lives, and that's actually a good thing for us. Lie number 5, information is all that I need. I don't need a teacher. Now, the internet might give you information, but hopefully an interaction with a teacher will provide wisdom, and they are very, very different. Just because the information is out there doesn't mean that it's correct. And there's lots of falsehood out there. Hopefully a personal interaction with a parent or a teacher will give them the wisdom that they need. We looked at Proverbs 3, 5, 6, and 7. The truth that we shared here is I must learn from God and from others, and to seek wisdom above information. Okay, so each week I gave challenges to the students. One of the challenges that we did is we recorded our screen time for about a month to see our progression week after week. If addressing some of these topics, if bringing these topics to the surface has caused them to use their technology less. And for some it did, and I was encouraged by that. For me, it has also done that for me as well. One of the things that, I'll share this. With the students, I said I would like for us to consider putting our phones away while we're here at church. And Wednesdays, we bought a little cubby for them to put their cell phones in. And I shared a story about how I was having a conversation with Sammy while some students were playing pool. And we were having a conversation. I had my phone in my hand. She had her phone in her hand. And we were carrying on a conversation. But in addition to that, I noticed that a student wasn't there, and so I decided to send a text really quick to a student, and she was doing something on her phone. And the interaction would have gone far better if I would have just been face-to-face with her, no technology in between us whatsoever. And students have the tendency to do that. If I feel bored, if I don't know what to do with waiting, I'll pick up my phone. And as a result, they are missing some of the opportunities for God to speak to them in times of silence. They are missing daydreaming opportunities to think and to imagine what God might have for them in the future for employment. They are missing opportunities between two students, having a great conversation and connecting over something that they have in common because they are both staring at their phones. And so on Wednesdays especially, I'm encouraging students to do that. And for the first these few weeks that we've been talking about it, it's been nice to see that some students are not just glued to their phones, they're actually interacting. It's forcing them to be more social that way. So here are some of the challenges that I gave to the students. Some of them took it and some of them didn't, and maybe you can reiterate this and maybe this would be help. Be more comfortable with waiting without using technology. Choose not to multitask. This would be using two screens at once. Sometimes when we have movie nights or movie events, the TV is going on, but the students are not watching the TV. They are still on their phones. Limit yourself to one screen at all. Instead of communicating with text, call the person instead. I came across an interesting research there where someone had students text their parents some information, and then they tested their hormone levels afterward. And they saw that the happiness hormone didn't really increase at all, but the anxiety hormone increased. Then they did the same study. Instead of texting, why don't you call your parents and just talk to them really quickly? And just the fact of hearing their voice brought their anxiety down and their happiness hormone up. And so, instead of using text so much, let's actually use the phone for what it was designed for and actually call and talk to the person. The challenge that I gave this week, it's a big one, is to fast one piece of technology or one app for a whole 24-hour period. I think this is a really good activity, and I told the students, whatever on your phone, because it'll track everything, what's the most used app? A few students had a couple hours of YouTube every single day. That was what they went to every single day. Okay, then I would challenge you to fast that for 24 hours. Put that challenge upon yourself and use that time for something else, something spiritual, something connecting with your family or with God. Here's some other pieces of advice that I gave the students. No screens in bathrooms and bedrooms. There's lots of studies out there that show that students are getting interrupted with their sleep because they have their cell phones next to them, using it for an alarm clock, and that they're texting and scrolling into the late hours in the morning without going to sleep. And so, no screens in bedrooms and bathrooms, no screens for at least an hour before bedtime, and for us as parents, there should be some tech-free zones in our household, maybe the dinner table, maybe a certain time period. So those are my challenges to the students, and I'm hoping that this continues in our youth group, that they would prioritize people instead of technology when we meet on Wednesdays. And if we want to continue this on Sundays, I think that'd be a great practice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found this helpful. If you are interested in reading this book, you can search for it online. Great author. If you want to have some more conversations with me about this, feel free to text me or call me, or we can have a conversation on a Sunday or Wednesday. Okay, bless you. Bye.